Hi, host Eric here, host of Talking with Famous People, the television show that invites you to be the guests. Um, if we were to have a tagline, that might work. I don't know, something like that. Anyway, I thought I'd talk today about the types most likely to mistype themselves or to have trouble determining which type they are. And I'm going to start with one type that seems to have some trouble, which is the ENTP. I've encountered a few ENTPs now who want who come to the system and who want to understand themselves through their understanding of the system more than through any description of the actual type. And this is typical of the ENTP. Well, listen, says Bo. I'm clearly a thinker. I spend all my time thinking about abstract ideas. I must be a TI Dom. I'm an INTP. Trenton, the world's most textbook ENTP. Facebook messaged me the other night and said, I think I might be an ESTP. I said, no, Trenton, you're not. He's like, well, I don't know. Right. That's because you're an ENTP. That's why you don't know. Because you do know, but you just hate the fact that it's finalized. You just want more possibilities. This is the struggle for the ENTP when trying to pin down their own type is they don't like having to pick one. They want to try them all. Well, sorry, Bo, you're an ENTP, not an INTP. Sorry, Trenton, you're an ENTP. I don't tell other people what type they are like that, in that fashion, except for other ENTPs who are trying to resist the obvious truth of the thing. I mean, it's one thing to respect somebody's choices regarding their own type. It's quite another when the yellow guy standing next to you and all the other yellow guys goes, I'm green, I'm green. I know I'm not great with these colors here, but I am good with yellow. And you're yellow, dude. You know, and so that's the thing about ENTPs. They just want to try out more possibilities. The other types that tend to have trouble figuring out who they are, INFPs, ENFPs, less so ENFPs, but INFPs, ISFPs, those two types have a lot of trouble figuring out who they are because of the dominant FI. The FI in the dominant slot means that they're going to be noting their swishy around feelings all the time and trying to build a worldview based on something that has no constancy over time, really. So as a consequence, your ISFP and INFP have difficulty understanding who they are and what they are at first. However, I think once they settle into their type, they're less likely to try to pull the maybe I'm an INFJ thing, you know. Another type that's difficult for an external person to type is an INFJ. I don't think people really determine INFJ and go back from it. I think INFJs are pretty. I tend to know INFJs when I'm dealing with them. INTPs, they tend to mistake themselves for ENTPs potentially at first or INTJs potentially at first, even though they're nothing like INTJs. It's much more sensible that they might mistype themselves as ENTPs because ENTPs do come in the quiet variety, who've been damaged or beat up a lot in life and are being very cautious. They tend to seem more like INTPs. Callum is an example of such, yeah. So other types that might have some problems typing themselves, SFJs and NFJ. So ENFJ, ESFJ. They might have trouble, they might think they're the other one. Because the descriptions are often quite similar, even though the cognitive functions aren't. And they don't really play out the same at all, but there's enough surface similarities that those two could easily enough get confused if you're just basing it on the type descriptions. I think the last one I would say might be confused is ISTP and INTP may confuse themselves for each other. And that makes sense because they're both TI DOMs, and that can be a tricky determination to make if you're new to the system. So that makes sense that they might think they're an INTP and then decide eventually they're an ISTP, which is the way it usually works out. I've seen that with Ben and with Patrick, so based on our words. So that's my take on types likely to misidentify themselves and what they're likely to misidentify themselves as. Any thoughts from the few people we got in the room here? Callum, Explicit, or Zack, 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 Zack. Only perceives. You may state your opinions, but only through your perceptive functions. Okay, well, thank you all for watching Talking with Famous People. And I only mentioned PS. What's PS? P's. I only mentioned P's. No, I mentioned some J's. I said SFJs might mistake themselves for ENFJs. I think that your outsider may mistake an ESTJ for an ENTJ, and apparently a lot of people say my ENTJ father was such an asshole when really they're talking about their ESTJ fathers, which are obviously a lot more common. In fact, I made that mistake, but it's really hard to type your own family members because you're so close to them, you understand them so well that they seem to defy every little quirk of theirs has more weight than it ought to in your analysis. So anyway, my position on the mistypings, ESTJ, ENTJ, possible for outsiders, probably not for them individually. I think they get themselves pretty much right away. As my ESTJ friend Wheeler did. I kept saying, Wheeler, you must be an ENTJ because you're so smart. He said, well, I took the test twice, I'm ESTJ. And that was it for him. Hi, Yubi. So we just finished up the topic of types that tend to mistype themselves or have trouble deciding on a type or go back and forth for a variety of reasons. I hope the viewing audience at home enjoyed it, and I hope those in attendance enjoyed it as well. Use that memory. Cheese is in your fridge. Go get some. Eat it now, and you won't have to think about it later.